The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in the Stop and Shop on Route 9 in Poughkeepsie, New York, casting a sterile glow over the aisles of canned goods and cereal boxes. It was 6:47 p.m., and the store was quiet, save for the hum of a floor buffer and the occasional beep of a barcode scanner. Nia Carter, a 29-year-old black woman, stood in aisle 7, her cart half full with groceries for the week: milk, eggs, a loaf of Wonder Bread, and a pack of chicken thighs for her mom's Sunday dinner. Her braids were pulled back in a neat bun, and she wore a faded NYU sweatshirt, a remnant of her college days before she'd had to drop out to support her family. She was scanning a coupon on her phone when she felt eyes on her, sharp and unyielding. Like a spotlight she couldn't escape, Nia glanced up and saw him, an older white man, maybe 70, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit, his silver hair slicked back, his Rolex glinting under the lights. He stood at the end of the aisle, holding a bottle of artisanal olive oil, staring at her with a mix of suspicion and disdain. Nia's stomach tightened. She'd felt this kind of gaze before in department stores, at gas stations, in her own neighborhood in Beacon, where she'd grown up. She turned back to her cart, pretending to check her list. But the man's voice cut through the air like a blade. "You don't belong here," he said, his tone low but deliberate, loud enough for a nearby cashier to glance over. "I've seen you in here before, taking things. I know your type." Nia froze, her hand gripping the cart's handle. Her heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "Excuse me. I'm just shopping, sir. I don't know you." The man, later identified as Richard Hensley, a retired real estate mogul with a mansion in Hyde Park, stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "Don't play dumb with me. I saw you slip something in your bag. People like you think you can just take whatever you want." Nia's cheeks burned with anger, but she kept her composure, aware of the eyes now turning toward them. A small crowd was forming: shoppers, a teenage stock boy, the cashier, all watching. "I didn't take anything," she said firmly, opening her reusable tote to show her wallet, keys, and a pack of gum. "I'm paying for everything in my cart. Leave me alone." Hensley smirked, undeterred. "We'll see about that." He waved over the store manager, a nervous-looking white man in his 40s with a name tag reading Gary. Before Nia could explain, Hensley was spinning a story, claiming he'd seen her pocket a jar of peanut butter and a box of cereal. Gary, flustered, asked to check her bag. Nia complied, her hands trembling with humiliation as she emptied her tote onto the counter. Nothing, just her personal items. But Hensley doubled down, insisting she'd hidden something in her sweatshirt. "I'm not a thief," Nia said, her voice rising despite her efforts to stay calm. "You're harassing me. Back off." Gary hesitated, glancing between Nia and Hensley, whose presence seemed to fill the aisle with authority. "Ma'am, maybe we should call the police to sort this out," he said, his tone apologetic but firm. Nia's heart sank. She knew what that meant. Growing up in Beacon, she'd seen how sorting things out with the police often went for people who looked like her. But she nodded, not wanting to escalate things further in front of the growing crowd. "Fine," she said. "Call them." To Poughkeepsie PD officers arrived within 15 minutes, their radios crackling as they stepped into the store. Officer Malone, a stocky white man with a buzz cut, took the lead, while his partner, Officer Ruiz, a younger Latino man, hung back, taking notes. Hensley launched into his story again, his voice dripping with confidence, peppering in details about his long-standing relationship with the town's mayor and his generous donations to local charities. He painted Nia as a repeat shoplifter, a menace to the community, and the officers listened intently, nodding as he spoke. Nia stood by her cart, arms crossed, trying to keep her breathing steady. She explained her side: how she was just shopping, how Hensley had targeted her without proof, how she'd shown her bag and found nothing. But Malone's questions were sharp, skeptical. "Why were you lingering in the aisle so long? Got any ID on you? Any priors we should know about?" Nia handed over her driver's license, her record clean, but Malone's demeanor didn't soften. Ruiz, meanwhile, avoided her eyes, scribbling in his notepad. The officers didn't search Hensley or question his story. Instead, they escorted Nia to the back of the store, where a security camera had caught the interaction. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Nia scanning her phone, Hensley approaching. No sign of her taking anything. Still, Malone suggested she come down to the station to clear things up. Nia refused, her voice firm but shaking. "I'm not going anywhere. I didn't do anything wrong." Hensley, standing nearby, scoffed. "You're wasting everyone's time, young lady. Just admit it and move on." Something in Nia snapped. She pulled out her phone, started recording, and pointed it at Hensley. "Say it again," she said, her voice steady now. "Tell everyone how you're accusing me of stealing because of how I look." The crowd shifted uncomfortably, some pulling out their own phones. Hensley's face reddened, but he stayed silent, his lips pressed into a thin line. The officers stepped in, telling Nia to put her phone away. She complied but sent the video to her older sister Tanya, a paralegal who'd always been her fiercest advocate. Tanya arrived within the hour, her presence a force of nature, tall, poised, her locks swept into a high bun. She demanded to speak to the manager and the officers, citing the store's policies and Nia's rights. When Malone tried to brush her off, Tanya mentioned the security footage and the growing number of shoppers filming the scene. "This is going viral if you don't handle it right," she said, her voice calm but unyielding. The officers backed off, letting Nia leave with her groceries, but not before Malone muttered, "Don't make this a habit." Hensley, meanwhile, slipped out, his driver waiting in a sleek black Mercedes outside. Nia went home, her hands still shaking as she unpacked her groceries, the weight of the encounter sinking in. She'd done nothing wrong, yet she felt like a criminal in her own town. Tanya wasn't done. She uploaded Nia's video to X, tagging local news outlets and civil rights groups. By morning, it had thousands of views, with comments calling out Hensley's harassment and the officer's bias. A local activist group, Hudson Valley Justice, reached out, connecting Nia with a pro bono lawyer, Sarah Klein, a white woman in her 50s with a reputation for taking on tough cases. Sarah saw the video and agreed to represent Nia, filing a lawsuit against Hensley for defamation and emotional distress, and against the Poughkeepsie PD for racial profiling and failure to protect. The case wasn't easy. Hensley's wealth insulated him. His legal team was a powerhouse from a Manhattan firm, painting him as a concerned citizen trying to protect his community. The police union backed Malone and Ruiz, claiming they'd followed protocol. But the security footage, combined with Nia's video and witness statements from shoppers, told a different story. The trial, held in Dutchess County Court, became a local spectacle, drawing reporters from Albany to New York City. Nia took the stand, her voice steady as she recounted the humiliation of being accused in front of strangers, the fear of being targeted for her race, the way Malone's questions made her feel small. "I was just trying to buy groceries," she said, tears in her eyes. "I didn't deserve that." The jury, a mix of locals from Poughkeepsie's diverse community, listened intently. Sarah presented the footage, showing Hensley's aggressive approach and the officer's dismissive attitude. She called witnesses, including the cashier, who admitted she'd seen nothing suspicious but felt pressured by Hensley's status. Hensley's defense was slick but flimsy. He claimed he'd misinterpreted Nia's actions, citing his civic duty to report suspicious behavior, but under cross-examination, his story unraveled. He couldn't explain why he'd singled out Nia or why he'd lied about seeing her steal. The officers fared no better. Malone's testimony was riddled with inconsistencies, and Ruiz admitted he'd followed his partner's lead without questioning. After 3 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for 6 hours. On a crisp October morning, they returned a verdict, guilty on all counts. Hensley was ordered to pay $250,000 in damages for defamation and emotional distress, and the Poughkeepsie PD faced a $100,000 fine with a mandate for bias training. The courtroom erupted in applause as Nia hugged Tanya and Sarah, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in months, she felt seen, not as a stereotype, but as a person. The victory wasn't just financial. The case sparked a reckoning in Poughkeepsie. The mayor issued a public apology, and the police chief promised reforms. Nia used part of the settlement to start a scholarship fund for black students in Beacon, naming it after her late father, who'd always told her to stand tall. She went back to Stop and Shop, not as a victim, but as a woman who'd fought and won. The fluorescent lights still buzzed, but this time when she walked down aisle 7, no one stared. She was Nia Carter, and she'd reclaimed her story.